This is what I was told yesterday. What is it, Carol? What would be your groundwater table today? About 1,000 feet is what I was told. About 1,000 feet. No? How much is it then? In the center part. Okay. Wonderful. So you have an opportunity to reinvent. You don't have to get your water from further away. You can actually recharge your groundwater adequately to be able to reuse it for water supply. Because using groundwater for water supply means that you actually get local water and your cost of water supply goes down. You can be egalitarian. You can supply to everybody without a high cost. Sorry. And this is also happening because in our cities today, and I'm sure Dhaka will be different, but I'm giving you the context of India because it's important for you to understand whether that same context, and my warning just is don't let that happen here. You can do it differently. All our cities were built on lakes and ponds, and they were the natural recharge for our groundwater systems. So you built your cities, your countries, based on a system in which you knew you had rain in a short period. You held it in your ponds, in your tanks. They were the sponges of your country. And those sponges recharged your groundwater. You built a water-secure future. Today, our ponds and tanks are getting filled up. They are getting polluted. We only see land in our cities. Our builders only see land. They never see land for water. So land for water is never protected. There is only one city of India, Guwahati, which has now got a legal document which protects every water body of the lake, including its catchment area. Because remember, a lake is nothing more than a hole in the ground if you don't protect the catchment of the lake. And this then becomes the big crisis of our cities because, as I said, with climate change, you will get more variable rainfall. You need the sponges of your city. And with the sponges gone, with rainwater harvesting not happening, you are in a scenario when the rain comes, you have a flood. And when the rain is not there, you have water scarcity. This is the situation that we are all in. And this then also needs to be linked to the story of waste in our cities. Because remember, 80% of the water we get in our homes, 80% leaves as sewage. So if your water board is supplying you water on your taps, and if you are getting over 100 liters per capita, or in Dhaka's case, probably higher than 100 liters per capita per day, then 80% of that leaves your home as sewage. But what most cities have is accounts for water, but they have no accounts for sewage. So they do not know where that sewage water goes. And invariably, it goes into the open drains, the lakes, the ponds, and then the river that we have in our cities. And that's the cycle of water, waste, and pollution that is happening city after city. The problem also is that our city planners, and this I am bringing you an experience from India, and it's a very serious problem. City planners, and I will tell you, all your engineers will come to you and say, Saab, don't worry at all. We are a developing nation. We only have, Dhaka today has about 20% of underground sewerage. You don't even know, like most of our cities, you don't even know the state of that sewerage. But they will come to you and say, don't worry, we will build your underground sewerage like this. Okay? And that is a catch-up game that I will assure you will never happen. I can give it to you in writing today. Unless you know something which is absolutely miraculous, you cannot catch up. The fact is, you have 20% of your city today under an underground sewerage. You already have a built city. You have a growing city happening under your noses. To build your underground sewage network is expensive. It's unaffordable for countries like ours. To maintain it is even more expensive. It will not happen. And as it will not happen, you will find that you have a situation where your rivers will die. Today, my own river, my city's river, Yamuna, is dead. And I say this in India all the time. It is dead, just not cremated. Its dissolved oxygen level is 0. I would really like you to tell me what is the dissolved oxygen level of your rivers here. I am sure it is not much different. It is not because it is nothing to do with you. It is nothing to do with us. It is the system of water and waste that we are adopting. A capital-intensive system, a resource-intensive system, where on one hand we are bringing water from further and further away. Cost of water supply goes up. We have no money to spend on sewage. We have a huge sanitation challenge in our countries. We need to provide the link from the toilet to an affordable sewage system. That is really the big challenge that we have in our countries. If you look at India, we did this mapping for city after city in India, and we found that most cities of India do not have underground sewage networks. They just do not exist. When I asked yesterday what is Dhaka's underground sewage network, I was told roughly 20% of the city is covered. But I was also told, as in our cities, most of that underground sewage requires refurbishment. It is old. We don't even know where it is in most cases. And this is really the challenge of reinventing sewage, because if you don't clean the sewage, your water bodies will die. And if your water bodies die, whatever rainwater harvesting we do will not be enough. So that link has to be made. Today, in most of our cities, my colleagues have been doing what we call shit flow diagrams, and we are finding that most people do not wait for underground sewage. They can't. As human beings, we need water, we need food, we will excrete. Our excreta needs to go somewhere. And our excreta will go invariably, in our cities we are finding, into underground boxes called septic tanks. They are not made well, they are seen as being not needed, and yet maybe that is really where the focus needs to be. Because today our current sanitation focus is on building toilets, which is necessary. And our pollution control focus is on building sewage treatment plants, which is totally unviable because you do not have underground sewage to intercept your waste and take it to a sewage treatment plant. So invariably, our planners build the sewage treatment plant and then try and connect it to an underground sewage network. It will not happen. And yet, as in the case of water, when people move to groundwater, people are building septic tanks. And here, there is a huge policy gap because policymakers don't recognize the septic tanks as being part of the future of your water and waste system. So there is no official conveyance, there is no official treatment. There is invariably a mafia of people who go out and collect the waste and they dump it wherever they can. And this is really the system that could play a role in our future. It doesn't have to be part of our past. It's also part of the future because in some senses, in our part of the world, we keep saying we have leapfrogged. We have reinvented. So we have reinvented the mobile phone. Instead of doing landlines, we today have the mobile phone. And yet, when we look at rainwater harvesting, which is a decentralized source of water, when we look at the septic tank, it is an on-site decentralized source of a system of waste management. We discount these. And yet this is a possibility for us to re-engineer our water and waste system. We can actually think and do things differently, completely differently, by rethinking of rainwater and groundwater as being our essential part of our water supply system, and the septic tank and the on-site system for waste management to be an integral part of our waste management system. And this is particularly important because the world needs to reinvent what I called the nitrogen cycle. Today, we take a little bit of human excreta, we take a lot of water, and we flush it, and we then take water as a conveyance to move that human excreta, and even if we treat it, we dispose it into a river or a water body. And yet, the challenge is to bring back the nitrogen back on the ground. You use nitrogen for food. You eat food. You excrete it. And instead of putting it back on land, you're putting it in water. This is the disruption of the nitrogen cycle, which is as important as the disruption of the carbon cycle. So at the end, in my view, the only way to move ahead for Bangladesh, for India, for all our countries is to plan deliberately to cut costs of water supply. This is critical for cities. Please don't let engineers give you a water supply system which is expensive, which today you meter every household, but you will not be able to charge for the cost of water if your cost of supply goes up. And to do this, you have to invest in local systems. Rainwater harvesting is not cute. It is not something that we have to do after we have done everything. Rainwater harvesting is integral to Bangladesh's water future. And the reason is that you have to be able to harvest the rain, hold it in the ponds and tanks, so that you can reduce the cost of water supply. And with this, of course, you have to reduce your water demand. You cannot become a water wasteful society. You have to remain a bucket society. Today, we are all moving to showers instead of buckets. And that's going to be one other big crisis, because remember, as much water you use, as much there will be for waste that will need to be treated. But what city planners have to do is to spend on sewage, not on water. I would argue that your budget for sewage should be triple the budget that you have even for water. And the reason is that you need to find a way to be able to cut the cost of sewage, and that again is part of the challenge to have an affordable system so that we can have sanitation for all, toilets for all, but the toilets for all doesn't add to another health burden in our countries. So our common agenda is recharge every drop where it falls, protect the sponges of our cities, our villages. And in Carol's list, Mr. Secretary, I will add another item on your list, that not only rainwater harvesting law, but you also need a law to protect your lakes and ponds. That has to be part of the change you bring now. You have the opportunity. You have not destroyed your lakes and ponds. You can do it today. And if you do that in your city context, you build a system to cut the cost of your water supply. But then you also need to stop pollution. Because if you don't stop pollution, your lakes and ponds will only become sources of dirty water. And for this, you need the affordable sewage system that can meet the needs of all. So the most important agenda is to also reinvent sewage management so that it is affordable. And this then is about all of us, because at the end of the day, it is about society's wisdom. Our ability to live with both excesses and with scarcity. I keep getting asked, will India have a water war? And I keep saying no. The water war is in our hands. We can have a war or we can have peace. And the only reason is if we learn to do things differently. So the bottom line for me is water managers require courage. Water wisdom is about courage. It is about courage to do things differently, to be different, to show a new way for water management and for waste management. We cannot do what the rich societies of the world have done. They are water foolish. We have to be water wise, all in a time when climate change is going to make our world even more risked, even more vulnerable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Narayan, for that powerful speech and for really bringing home the true extent of the subcontinental water and waste crisis.